Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at something that you guys specifically requested. The true meaning of G in Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Ah,
You
yes.
wanted to go beyond like the usual, tricks and schemes kind of interpretation.
Right.
And we've got some great insights. Breaks down this very concept.
Yeah.
So get ready to discover what G really means, how it applies to more than just battles, and even why some famous historical figures, well, they might have gotten it wrong.
It's fascinating how often G gets misinterpreted as just being clever or tricky.
Right.
Like those elaborate schemes we associate with, figures like Zhuge Liang
Oh, yeah.
from The Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Sure, yeah.
Those stories are entertaining, but they don't quite capture the depth of what Sun Tzu was getting at.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first read The Art of War, I was picturing like all these cunning maneuvers and surprise attacks, but
Yeah.
you're saying there's more to it than that.
Much more.
Okay.
Sun Tzu's G is really about calculation and analysis.
Okay.
Think of it like a grandmaster playing chess.
Hmm.
They're not just reacting to their opponent, they're thinking several moves ahead,
Right.
evaluating every possible outcome.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on just like flashy tactics or whatever,
Mhm.
it's about taking a step back
Right.
and analyzing the whole entire situation before making a move.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about understanding the playing field,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu even outlines this with what he calls
Yeah.
the 5 factors and 7 considerations.
5 factors and 7 considerations.
Yes.
That sounds pretty intense.
It is.
So is this like
Yeah.
Sun Tzu's version of a SWOT analysis for ancient warfare?
You could say that. It's
Okay.
essentially a framework for evaluating every aspect of a conflict,
Right?
from the big picture stuff all the way down to the nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
So the 5 factors are the way, heaven, earth, commander, and law.
All right. Break that down for me.
Okay.
What do those actually mean, like in the context of war?
Well, the way is about having a justifiable reason for going to war.
Okay.
It's got to be something your people believe in,
Right.
not just like a power grab.
Right.
Then you've got heaven, which refers to things like weather and timing.
So?
Are you fighting in the right season under favorable conditions? Earth is about terrain and geography. Do you know the battleground?
Okay.
Are you using it to your advantage?
So it's not just about brute force.
No.
It's about understanding the environment
Exactly.
and having the moral high ground.
Yes.
That's actually pretty insightful.
And then we get to commander,
Yeah.
which is all about leadership.
Okay.
Is your general capable?
Right.
Do they inspire their troops? And finally, law refers to organization and discipline within the army.
Right.
Are your soldiers well trained?
Ah.
Are they following orders?
Right.
Do they trust their superiors?
Wow. That's a lot to consider.
It is a lot.
And that's just the 5 factors.
That's just the 5.
Right.
Yes.
You mentioned 7 considerations too.
Yeah.
What are those all about?
So the 7 considerations delve even deeper, really getting into the specifics.
Okay.
They compare things like the ruler's path.
Hmm.
Is their cause just?
Great.
Are they leading their people effectively? Then there's the general's ability.
Right.
Are they skilled in strategy and tactics? Do they understand the enemy?
So it's like taking a magnifying glass to the leadership and like the overall
Exactly.
almost.
Precisely.
Okay.
The other considerations look at timing and geographical conditions.
Right.
Are you striking at the right moment in
Yeah.
the right place?
I see.
Then there are military decrees.
Okay.
Are orders clear? Are they being followed? You also have to factor in soldier strength and numbers.
Right.
Do you have enough troops? Are they properly equipped?
I see.
And even the fairness of rewards and punishments comes into play.
Wow.
Are soldiers motivated?
Yeah.
Do they trust that their efforts will be recognized?
This is really eye-opening.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's so much more than just coming up with clever battle plans.
Right.
It's about taking a holistic view
It is.
of the entire situation.
Yeah.
It's making me wonder if some of those famous historical figures that we think of as master strategists
Yeah.
were actually making some critical mistakes.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
Let's take Zhuge Liang, for example.
Right.
He's often celebrated for his brilliant tactics and schemes.
Right.
But if we look at his campaigns through the lens of the 5 factors and 7 considerations, we start to see a different picture.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What about Zhuge Liang's strategies doesn't quite line up with G?
Well, think about the resources he had in the state of Shu
Right.
compared to Sima Yi's way.
Yeah.
He was constantly launching campaigns.
Yeah.
Despite facing overwhelming odds.
Yeah.
He might have won some impressive victories,
Right.
but he was also taking huge risks.
So you're saying he might have been prioritizing bold action
Yeah.
over careful calculation.
It's possible.
Okay.
He was certainly a brilliant military mind,
Right.
but maybe he wasn't always applying the full scope of Ji.
Right.
Sima Yi, on the other hand, seemed to have a deeper understanding of its principles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So while Zhuge Liang was known for his daring maneuvers and all that, Sima Yi was playing a more calculated game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember how Sima Yi outmaneuvered Zhuge Liang by focusing on something as seemingly mundane as grain supply?
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of Ji in action.
Right.
He wasn't trying to win with flashy tactics.
Yeah.
He was thinking about the long game.
Right.
The logistics, the things that truly matter in a sustained conflict.
That's a great point.
Mm.
It's making me think of those startups that burn through their funding without a solid plan.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
they might have a brilliant product,
Right.
but if they neglect the fundamentals, they're setting themselves up for failure.
Exactly. It's a reminder that sometimes the less glamorous aspects
Yeah.
are the most crucial
Right.
for
Yeah.
success.
That's a good point.
And that brings us to an important question.
Okay.
What was Sun Tzu's primary goal in writing The Art of War?
Okay.
Was it to win wars?
Well, based on everything we've discussed so far, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Not necessarily. You're absolutely right. His main focus wasn't on winning wars. It was on avoiding them altogether.
Right.
His whole philosophy was centered on,
Yeah.
calculating the odds of victory and only engaging when success was very likely. He saw war as a last resort.
Yes.
Something to be avoided if at all possible.
Exactly. Jizz is about minimizing risk.
Okay.
Recognizing that even if you win a battle,
Right.
there are always costs.
Yeah.
Casualties, unintended consequences.
Sure.
Sun Tzu was very aware of this, and he really emphasized the importance of choosing your battles wisely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle.
Right.
So G is almost a deterrent in a way. It's about being so well prepared
Yes.
and so aware of the situation that you can avoid conflict in the first place.
Precisely.
Okay, interesting.
It's about projecting strength through wisdom and foresight rather than through just aggression.
Right.
And that brings us to a really interesting example of what happens when a ruler ignores the principles of Ji,
Okay.
the Battle of Changping.
Okay.
It's a classic case of short-sightedness and how seemingly good opportunities can lead to disaster.
All right, take us back to ancient China.
Okay,
What was the situation at Changping?
so picture this. The king of Zhao is offered Shandong County,
Okay.
a seemingly valuable piece of territory.
Right.
On the surface, it looks like a great deal, but if you apply the 5 factors and 7 considerations, you realize it's a trap.
Oh, so it was one of those too good to be true situations.
Yeah. Exactly. Accepting Shandong meant going to war with the state of Qin,
Right.
a much more powerful and well-equipped adversary.
Right.
And if we analyze the king's decision using the 5 factors,
Yeah.
we see a major miscalculation right from the start.
Okay.
He failed to assess the way.
Wait, remind me, what was Wei about again?
Remember, the way is all about the moral justification for war.
Oh, yeah.
It's about having a cause that your people believe in, something that unites them.
Yeah.
The king of Zhao, blinded by the prospect of territorial gain,
Right.
essentially snatched a piece of land that wasn't rightfully his.
Oh, wow.
He lost the moral high ground right out of the gate,
Yeah.
and that mistake really set the stage for disaster.
So he violated one of the core principles of G before the war even began.
It certainly didn't help.
That's,
And what's even more tragic is that the king of Zhao had a general,
okay.
Lian Po,
Okay.
who understood the power of defense and patience.
Right.
He held his position, waiting for the enemy to make a mistake,
Yeah.
which aligns perfectly with the principles of Ji.
So Lian Po was embodying G by not rushing into a losing battle.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense, but what happened?
Unfortunately, anxiety and impatience got the better of the king.
Oh,
He started listening to rumors
oh no.
and became convinced that Lian Po was too cautious,
Yeah.
too hesitant.
Yeah.
So against his better judgment, he replaced Lian Po with Zhao Ku,
Okay.
a younger general who is known for his supposed daring and aggression.
Oh, I can already sense this isn't going to end well.
It did not.
It sounds like he let his emotions cloud his judgment,
Yes.
which is like the opposite of what Sun Tzu advocates for.
You're right. It's a classic case of letting fear and impatience dictate your actions.
Right.
And as you might have guessed, it did not end well for Zhao Ku.
Yeah.
He abandoned Lian Po's cautious strategy,
Right.
fell right into Qin's trap, and led the Zhao forces to a devastating defeat at Changping.
Wow. What a cautionary tale.
It is.
The king of Zhao's initial miscalculation with the Wei, followed by his impulsive decision to replace Lian Po,
Yeah.
it all just like snowballed into a catastrophic loss.
It did.
It's like a chain reaction of bad decisions stemming from that first disregard for G.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of the 5 factors and 7 considerations.
Yeah.
If you neglect one, it can have a ripple effect,
Right.
undermining your entire strategy,
Totally.
even if you have brilliant tactics later on.
All right, I'm definitely feeling the weight of those decisions. This is making me rethink so many situations in my own life
Yeah.
where I might have jumped into action
Yeah.
without fully considering the consequences.
Right.
But that's a conversation for later.
Yeah.
For now, I'm curious about something else.
Okay.
We've debunked the myth of G as mere trickery,
Right.
explored its true meaning as comprehensive calculation.
Yes.
But what about those famous tricks we often associate with Sun Tzu?
Right.
Where do those fit into this whole picture?
That's a great question. Sun Tzu does describe 12 strategies of deception in warfare,
Okay.
but he never presents them as a guaranteed path to victory.
Right.
It's important to remember that context.
Yeah.
For Sun Tzu, these strategies were tools in a skilled strategist's arsenal
Right.
to be used carefully and only when the situation called for it.
So it's not about being sneaky or manipulative.
Right.
It's about using deception strategically
Yes.
as part of a larger,
Yeah.
well-calculated plan.
Exactly. Think of it like a surgeon using a scalpel.
Okay.
In the right hands and for the right purpose, it's an incredibly precise and effective tool.
Right.
But in the wrong hands, it can do more harm than good.
Yeah, for sure.
So these 12 strategies cover a range of deceptive tactics.
Okay.
From feigning weakness to creating false distances,
All right.
to luring the enemy with profit,
Okay.
and even sowing discord among their ranks.
Okay, that's super interesting.
It is.
Can you give us like some concrete examples of these tricks in action? I'm imagining some epic historical double crosses.
Well, there's the story of Modu Shanyu,
Okay.
the leader of the Shanyu,
Okay.
who used deception to defeat the Han Emperor Liu Bang at
right.
the Battle of Baiting.
Right.
Modu intentionally presented his forces as weak and disorganized,
Okay.
leading Liu Bang to believe that he had the upper hand. But it was a clever ruse.
Oh, wow.
When Liu Bang advanced into Xianyu territory,
Yeah.
he found himself surrounded and trapped.
Ooh, that's a classic bait and switch. It's like those nature documentaries
Exactly.
where a predator plays dead to lure in unsuspecting prey.
Uh-huh.
Brutal, but effective.
And then there's the example of Napoleon Bonaparte,
Okay.
who was a master of deception
Okay.
during one campaign facing a much larger Austrian army.
Hmm.
He boldly presented himself as if he commanded the entire French army.
Oh, wow.
The Austrians, intimidated by his apparent strength,
Right.
surrendered without a fight.
Wow, talk about a power move.
I know.
He basically won through sheer audacity and a brilliant bluff.
Yeah.
It seems like deception can be a pretty powerful tool in the right hands.
It certainly can be. But it's important to remember that these tricks are not foolproof.
Right.
They rely on the enemy falling for the deception.
Right.
And even then, they're not a guarantee of victory.
Right.
Think of it like fake moves in soccer.
Okay.
They can be useful to create an opening.
Yeah.
But ultimately, winning depends on the player's overall skill and strategy.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that deception is just one tactic among many,
Right.
and it needs to be used wisely and in conjunction with a solid foundation of G.
Yes.
So we've got these 12 strategies of deception, some
Yeah.
pretty fascinating historical examples.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious about something.
Okay.
What about that famous story of Zhuge Liang's empty city strategy?
Yeah.
You know, the one where he famously opens the city gates and plays the zither as Siniyi's army approaches,
Oh, right. Right.
scaring them off.
Yeah. You...
That always seemed like the ultimate example of deception in warfare.
Ah, yes. The empty city strategy. That story is a classic example of how popular culture can sometimes get history mixed up.
Okay.
The version you're describing, with Zhuge Liang playing the zither,
Yeah.
is actually a fictional account from Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Wait, seriously? That's one of the most famous stories about Zhuge Liang.
I know.
So you're telling me it never actually happened?
It did not.
What's the real story then?
Well, there was a historical instance of the empty city strategy,
Okay.
but it wasn't executed by Zhuge Liang.
Okay.
It was Zhao Yun,
Okay.
another skilled general from the Three Kingdoms period,
Okay.
who pulled it off against Cao Cao.
Right.
He found himself facing a much larger force.
Right.
And instead of panicking, he retreated to his camp,
Mm-hmm.
opened the gates, and lowered the flags,
Okay.
creating the illusion of an empty and undefended position.
Ooh, that's a risky move. It sounds like he was betting everything on Cao Cao falling for the deception.
He was.
Did it work?
It did. Cao Cao, being a shrewd strategist himself,
Yeah.
hesitated.
Okay.
He recognized that this could be a trap,
Right.
and that attacking could lead to disastrous consequences.
Right.
So he chose to retreat rather than risk falling for a potential ambush.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Zhao Yun used deception to deter a superior force.
Yes.
But it sounds like Cao Cao's cautious retreat was also a display of good Ji, right?
You're exactly right.
He recognized the potential danger
Yeah.
and avoided a risky engagement.
Cao Cao's decision really highlights an important point.
Okay.
Ji is not just about knowing when to attack,
Right.
but also about knowing when to retreat,
Right.
when to avoid a fight that could lead to unnecessary losses.
This is making me think about all the times I've charged headfirst into a situation without really thinking it through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little more G in my life wouldn't hurt.
Indeed. Applying the principles of Ji can be beneficial in many aspects of life,
Right.
not just warfare.
Okay, so we've explored the tricks,
Yes.
debunked some myths,
Right.
and even touched on how G can be applied beyond the battlefield.
Right.
But let's bring it back to the core concept.
Okay.
What's the biggest takeaway for our listeners when it comes to G?
I would say the essence of Ji lies in comprehensive calculation.
Oh.
Seizing the right opportunity,
Right.
and avoiding costly mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not about relying on complex tricks or schemes,
Right.
but about making informed decisions based on a thorough understanding of the situation.
Okay.
Remember what Sun Tzu said? The key to victory for a military strategist cannot be predetermined.
So adaptability and improvisation are also key.
Absolutely.
It's not about rigidly following a set plan,
No.
but about being able to adjust your strategy as the situation unfolds.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's about having a framework for decision-making,
Right.
a set of principles to guide you,
Mhm.
but also being flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances.
It's like that saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Right?
You need to be able to think on your feet and make those crucial calculations in real time.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
that's what sets apart a truly skilled strategist
Yeah.
from someone who just relies on tricks and deception.
All right, I'm feeling enlightened.
Good.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
How does this concept of G translate to other areas of life,
Right.
like work or personal relationships?
Oh, yeah.
Can we use it to make better decisions in our everyday lives?
Absolutely. Think
Yeah.
about it. G is all about understanding the dynamics,
Right.
assessing your strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
making calculated decisions.
Right.
It's not about trying to outsmart others with tricks,
Yeah.
but about, making informed decisions
Yeah.
and avoiding costly mistakes,
Right.
whether you're negotiating a deal at work, navigating a conflict with a friend, or
Uh-huh.
even figuring out your next career move.
Yeah.
The principles of G can be incredibly helpful.
So it's like having that inner strategist
Yeah.
always working in the background,
Yeah.
analyzing the situation,
Exactly.
helping you make the smartest move.
It's about cultivating that awareness,
Okay.
that ability to take a step back and assess the situation
Okay.
before jumping into action.
I see.
Just like Sun Tzu emphasized understanding the battlefield,
Right.
GG in everyday life encourages us to understand the landscape of our choices,
Right.
the potential risks and rewards, the long-term implications.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've debunked some common myths about G,
We have.
uncovered the real depth behind Sun Tzu's work,
Mm,
and even found ways to connect it to our own lives.
we did.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on strategy and decision-making.
It's amazing how relevant these ancient principles still are, isn't it?
It really is.
Sun Tzu's Art of War is a treasure trove of wisdom,
Hmm.
offering timeless insights that can be applied to countless situations.
Okay, listeners, I'm going to leave you with a final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay.
Think back on your own experiences. Have you ever been lured by a seemingly good opportunity only to realize later that you had lost sight of your original goals?
Right.
How can understanding the true meaning of G help you make better decisions in the future?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to channel your inner strategist and start calculating your moves with a little more wisdom and a lot less reliance on trickery.
Good advice.
Until next time, keep diving deep.